I played and saw a ton of games at Gamescom 2023, from the new Cyberpunk DLC to Little Nightmares 3, but also finally went hands-on with Assassin's Creed Odyssey 2, Assassin's Creed Jade, Stalker 2, Dungeon Hunter 6, and way more. I want to start with Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown though, which might actually be my surprise of the show. Like, even if you only want a third-person Prince of Persia game, you should not immediately write this one off. I was especially caught off guard by how well it feels to play, with the 60 FPS on all platforms totally helping with that. It feels great to slash the many enemies, use your bow in combat or for the puzzles, and I was surprised by the cool combos you could do with Sargon's abilities. Because real quick, we play Sargon in this game, who's part of a group called the Immortals, looking for the Prince of Persia. The cutscene looked pretty nice, and there was immediate tension between the characters, kinda hinting at some rivalry and maybe even boss battles against your teammates in the future. So that already piqued my interest, and even if we're not the prince himself, we're still very capable. And the highlight was totally using the bending time ability, where you place down a version of yourself that you can then teleport back to. My tactic was to use this against the shield enemies, get behind them, and then easily take them out. It's also more challenging than you might think, as you really have to use your parry wisely, which then also triggers this really cool animation. There were also impactful upgrades that completely changed the weapons and abilities that I did not see coming. It not only has a 4 out of 5 stars in terms of drop everything to play it when it launches on January 18th, and I did not expect that going in. And while not really for me, I can totally see why a lot of people are looking forward to Little Nightmares 3. That was kind of the surprise announcement of Gamescom 2023, and the big twist here is that it's 2-player co-op, and the gameplay demo I witnessed really showed a ton of influences from It Takes Two. Now, you can still play the game alone, but then the AI will control the other character, as they both have unique tools like a wrench and a bow that are both required to advance the creepy environment. Like, the atmosphere in particular is really well done. I saw the sand level being played in front of me. It starts quiet, but then Monster Baby wakes up and hunts you down with some very impressive destructions. And there were some fun puzzles that you come to expect from the series that you need to complete together in order to not get smashed by the Monster Baby. And there should also be other levels in completely different environments. So if this looks awesome, then totally start looking for someone to play this game with when it launches in 2024, because the 2-player co-op totally seems to be the best way to experience Little Nightmares 3, which might totally be a turn-off for some people. Now let's go over more things I actually played. Of course, if you like the video so far, then leaving a like on it would really help me out, and subscribe if you haven't already for way more coverage and a news round of videos like this. So yeah, I got my hands on the Cyberpunk 2077 DLC. During Gamescom, they actually talked more about the free update that includes redesigned perks and cyberware, vehicle combat, and a more realistic police system. While we don't know the exact details, we do know there will be even a bit more in that free update that will be available a little bit before the Phantom Liberty DLC, which is awesome. But the new story content and area, etc. from the DLC is of course paid, and I got to play an early mission that started in the black market area. And I haven't played Cyberpunk in a while, but just going through this region immediately reminded me of how well CDPR is in world building and animations for NPC characters. This new area felt like an actual market where everyone is minding their own business. The vendors have a personality instead of just being there to sell you stuff. So I was on a timer, so I had to follow the main mission as well, where I had to find the president, who was caught in the middle of a firefight. So we don't have gameplay of it, but this main mission was very linear and took me to a very cool looking stadium. It just felt great to be back in this world. I did not notice a lot of the changes to the combat during my play session, but I of course also could not make my own build. This was just a save that CDPR made in advance, so we will really have to wait for the end of September to experience it to the fullest. But I'm just looking forward to a trip back to Night City in what feels like the version that they intended from the start. Want to tell you about my experience with Assassin's Creed Jade, and I also played Stalker 2, but first the game that actually made my trip to Gamescom possible, and that is also sponsoring this video, Dungeon Hunter 6. Totally click the link in the video description for way more info on this free game, and I'm happy they reached out, because I was a big fan of the older Dungeon Hunter games back when I was still running a mobile gaming website a long time ago. So now we're at Dungeon Hunter 6. You don't need to have played the previous ones, by the way, to understand this one, and they've really come a long way. I played a couple of hours at the really nice looking Gamescom stage. I even encountered one of the characters from the game and I did not survive it. This was a cosplayer for one of the classes you can pick at the start. There are 6 in total, but I could play 4 during my demo, including the melee focused warrior that has a very strong spin attack. I really like the mage, like with this laser beam ability, you really have to make sure that you focus on the enemies and the other spells have to be aimed as well, but when they hit, they are very powerful. The only downside is that she can go down pretty quickly. The Moon Sister was totally the most unique class, as she's all about summoning stuff, like a large tree on the battlefield, really powerful abilities, also kind of a support class. And my favorite was totally the assassin that can shoot arrows through enemies and also has this very powerful spin ranged attack that was especially great against groups of enemies. I was really surprised by the fact that the game was mostly focused on boss battles though. The opening level feels like a boss rush where you're battling many large creatures after each other, and then the regions that follow throw you immediately against other big monsters as well, and they all look different, had different moves you had to watch out for, and the developers told me that we should not encounter the same boss twice throughout the story campaign. And the reason they focus on bosses instead of the smaller regular enemies we see often in the dungeon crawling genre is because they think these encounters are the most exciting to do, and they usually also give the best loot. So you're basically skipping the less important stuff and immediately get to the boss, which I really like. And of course, Dungeon Hunter 6 is also about finding new gear to make your character stronger, but a brand new addition are the lieutenants. So basically party members you can collect, you get some by playing through the game, others have to be earned, and these characters will help you out in combat and have a special ability you can activate as well. And the reason behind these is to make the end game in particular more exciting, so that in multiplayer groups are more varied because each player should have different lieutenants, and it will also make the PvP battles more interesting as you're now fighting groups instead of one other player. I hope it gets more challenging though, as the demo at Gamescom was pretty easy, but it was the opening of the game, so it also kind of makes sense. It should be out on October 13th for iOS and Android, and also get a ton of free post-launch content to keep the experience fresh with a big focus on the end game. I want to again thank Gameloft and Goat Games for inviting me to Gamescom and making the adventure possible and sponsoring this video. Totally give them some love. Check Dungeon Hunter 6 out via the special link in the video description. Another mobile game I of course have on my radar is Assassin's Creed Jade. Yes, they dropped the code name. It's now just Jade. We got a new logo that looks pretty awesome. There's a new trailer. And this really looks like an Xbox One PS4 game, but on Android and iOS. And really picking up the phone to play this for the first time kind of felt unreal, as if Assassin's Creed Odyssey got a mobile port or something. Now worth noting is that I played on the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, so a super high-end phone, which of course made sure that it looked really great. The draw distance was impressive, and I got used to the touch controls pretty fast. I was immediately sneaking around, taking out enemies with the melee weapons and bow, but as you might know, I like to dodge a lot in these games, and having that be like an extra touch button that you have to reach with your finger is not as convenient as on a controller, so hopefully I get used to it. So far, that was kind of my issue while playing, but what I did really like is how they change up the familiar RPG Assassin's Creed gameplay, because switching between different weapons is really important in Jade. As you might know, every weapon now has abilities linked to them, and they are on different cooldowns, so it's smart to switch often so you're able to use all these abilities, which I think is a really cool twist. The game also already feels kind of finished, only the cinematics were not here, and sometimes dialogue still had placeholder AI voices, but I can see this launch in the next few months or like early 2024, which is really exciting. We'll first get closed beta 2 though, that will invite more people to play and also include new content for people that played the beta before, so I hope I can get in on it as well. You can sign up via the official website, and by the way, if you want to learn way more about the game and the impressive amount of content that was already available, then totally check out my dedicated video I did via the special link in the video description. Now last but least is Stalker 2. Yes, I wish I was more positive about this one as the trailers looked pretty cool, but no, this was by far the worst title I played. Especially because I went to the Cyberpunk DLC right before this, and that kinda made Stalker 2 feel like a game from 10 years ago. It started out pretty cool. You're attacked by a dog and get a bolt from another survivor, which you then have to throw in this weird anomaly-like thing to boost yourself. So you always have to like look in the environment when you see a thing like that and then use the bolt. It's a cool idea, but then you're free to explore this open zone, and there was just nothing exciting about it at all. There were more dogs to kill, some human enemies that had some of the worst AI I've seen in recent years, like they were just standing and shooting at you, waiting to be killed. The shooting itself also did not really feel great. The sort of alien monsters were a nice surprise, but they also did not do a lot to change the gameplay up. There was nothing really interesting to find in the open world, with chests that you could not open, and after exploring a bit, the only thing I found was an energy drink that gave me a stamina boost, but that was it. They delayed the game to early 2024, but if this is the best they got to show, I really would not be surprised if it gets pushed even further. And of course, no disrespect to the developers from Ukraine. They got way more important things to worry about, which might also be the reason why the game is in this state. Again, totally understandable. Right now though, after playing this, it's hard to recommend, sadly. I also played Black Myth Wukong. Check out that video with my in-depth hands-on impressions by clicking on the screen if you haven't already. A like on the video would of course really help me out. Subscribe for more coverage on these games. Don't forget to check Dungeon Hunter 6 out via the special link in the pinned comment. Without them, my Gamescom coverage would not be possible, and I will speak to you very soon. Goodbye.